The wide world of gaming is also weird. Maybe we just call it the weird world of gaming. Anyway, every month, gameranx puts together the weird stuff we find into a nice, trim, little, neat package to point and laugh at. Hi folks, it's Falcon, and today on gameranx, this is that. It's the weird gaming stories of September 2025. So starting off with number 10, we have a rare consumer victory. I hate that is something that I don't think anyone will argue with me is weird. But Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2 was going to have factions that fans consider basically core to the lore as paywalled. They were going to be locked behind a paid DLC called Shadows and Silk, which, I can't imagine anybody liking that, given that, these extremely central vampire clans were paid DLC. Like, obviously, that's not the weird part, unfortunately. Again, this is so rampant, and we see it all the time now. That's not weird. It is very irritating, but what is weird is when people got mad about it, the Chinese room did a 180 and went back on it, which is... It's weird. That doesn't normally when we get mad, they don't care. I'm going to chalk this up to the size of the Chinese room. They're not a big company. They apparently have 55 employees. They started as a mod team for Half-Life 2, and I don't think they can sustain the kind of problems that a bigger developer could, especially given that Paradox Interactive contracted them to make this game. They're probably depending on this game to be well-liked in order to bolster their name. Like, the Chinese room is in kind of a Bloober Team situation here. It's not that people dislike the Chinese room in the way that they did with Bloober Team, but Silent Hill 2 was a huge project that was really important for their company, and it has skyrocketed their reputation much higher than it would otherwise be. This is 100% that type of a game for the Chinese room, so that's probably the reason behind it, which I guess makes it sound a little less weird. But if you consider, again, how often player dissent actually affects monetization ahead of a game's release, it doesn't happen often. So, props to them for listening. We have to give it to them, even though it's, I probably gave you the reason they listened, in my opinion anyway, but still, we should reward that. Like, I definitely am going to buy the game now, just because I want to support that kind of practice. I think it's probably going to be a good game. I don't know, we'll talk about it more when it comes out, but yeah, weird. You say something and it matters. What? Like, I'm going to say right here that most of you are not subscribed, and therefore I think it's a good time to ask you to subscribe. I know it's irritating, but I won't keep it long. It helps us, and hopefully it helps you see some stuff you want to see. We thank you a ton. Let's get back to it. At number 9, the enemy of my enemy is my friend, I guess. And by my, I mean Intel. Intel and NVIDIA have long been competitors and problems to each other. Maybe NVIDIA more of a problem to Intel because Intel, well, let's just say 2 words and you'll understand me. Integrated graphics. And what I can only call unexpected bromance. These 2 companies are in bed together. Let's not try to define it. They're working together. Intel's going to develop gaming rig, system on a chip stuff so that you have the Intel CPUs and the NVIDIA GPUs all nice and integrated in a way that completely outmods Intel integrated graphics, which sucks. I like the idea of some faster communication, some less bottleneck in terms of graphics and processor. NVIDIA, everybody uses NVIDIA. Unless you're talking about a good integrated graphics solution, which AMD has pretty much a monopoly there. Their CPU and GPU combos that come in computers completely have Intel and NVIDIA beat. It's in fact probably one of the main reasons why they're a competitor to either of those companies. It's that together their product works great as an integrated solution. This will no longer be. Or maybe will no longer be. That's what they're aiming for. It's a weird partnership. The weird part is just, NVIDIA and Intel are joining forces. Like, specifically joining forces. Like, NVIDIA investing $5 billion in Intel joining forces. At number 8, Wayne Rooney, who Americans may know a little less of. There are Americans that are very into FIFA and worldwide football, as we might call soccer. But Wayne Rooney, the legendary Manchester United player, said one of the big keys to Manchester United's dominance in the 2000s was PSP LAN parties. Like, he earnestly claimed that the reason that the team had such good chemistry is that they played a whole lot of Soakem on PSP. Like, they'd link up all their PlayStation portables, and as a bonding ritual, I mean, maybe not actively, but retroactively, certainly that's what it was, they'd play Soakem. And honestly, that tracks. If you read anything about this team, you'll find people saying they had cohesion and like a borderline psychic understanding of each other's movements. And this kind of works, like in terms of an explanation of why. When you understand people's movement in a video game as like a team, when you play it together, it does actually kind of explain how another person thinks to you in a certain way. Maybe I'm getting too far into it, but like, I thought that was a really fun reason for why the soccer team was good. And number 7, Nintendo is basically saying mods aren't real games. I mean, they didn't literally say that, but okay, so in their lawsuit with Pal World, they decided to argue that mod creations don't count as prior art. So this is an absolutely stupid lawsuit. You should not be able to copyright the idea of monster capture and battle. Pocket Pair, the developers of Pal World, have argued that a Dark Souls 3 mod called Pocket Souls allows you to capture enemies, and Nintendo didn't sue them. I would just bring up Digimon. That would be what I would do personally, but, you know, Persona maybe. I don't know if Persona counts as exactly the same thing because you're not using a device to capture and store them, but I want to use bad words when I describe how stupid I think Nintendo's lawsuit is. Words that I'm not supposed to use, particularly bad ones. I'll just use a regular level bad one. Fuck this lawsuit, especially if they win with this argument included. It would set a terrible precedent. The idea would essentially mean that modders lose protection when they innovate in a game. Like, you know how mods are often actually pretty innovative games and sometimes develop into their own IPs? Well, the reason for that is because their original ideas that apparently just, I don't know, revert to the ownership of the people who made the game. I don't think that's good. That sounds bad. Everything about this Nintendo lawsuit is bad. It is so anti-video game. Like, out of all people, Nintendo should know you can't own mechanics. Otherwise, Mario would literally just be copyright infringement because it is not the first platformer by any stretch. That's how genres start. I mean, it's like all of this crap where people are trying to copyright styles in art to combat AI. They don't realize they're shooting themselves in the foot because eventually every style will just be owned by some massive company and you won't be able to draw anything without paying a licensing fee. That situation wouldn't actually encourage the creation of new styles, just like this would not encourage new developers to come up with new ideas in mods. It's just these big companies exercising an iron grip on top of creativity. That's really what all of this kind of stuff is, and I absolutely hate it. At number 6, speaking of lawsuits, the Subnautica 2 lawsuit just got even messier. Krafton, the publisher, has just pulled a massive U-turn mid-case. So, Unknown Worlds, the studio behind Subnautica 2, got fired by Krafton, and that broke out in a legal war. The original claim by Krafton was that the game wasn't ready for early access, and that justified terminating the team. But now, mid-case, Krafton has said that the readiness of the game was totally irrelevant to their decision. Now, here's the big problem. That was what they hinged their defense on, and the judge has pointed out that all the original termination notices, public statements, and earlier filings all centered on game readiness, and that this is a massive red flag, which is not typically the judge's role. In a lawsuit, the plaintiff is generally the people pointing out the logic holes in the defense's case, but they were too blatant here. Like, this is a case-modifying change, and it's super strange that anybody would do this because Krafton seems to have realized that their original justification didn't work. Like, it's actually a problem for Krafton to release them for that reason. But changing gears here, it's not, I don't think, gonna help them. Like, the judge was like, hey, come on, guys. At number 5, Borderlands 4 is actually a pretty damn good game, except for the engine. Since it has dropped, so has its frame rate. Wah wah. Anyway, Randy Pitchford, in all his wisdom, decided to clap back over the fact that the game isn't running well, not by saying, oh, give it some time, we will fix it, which is, to be clear, I think probably what the actual plan is. But instead of just saying so, he's like, why don't you guys make your own? To quote him exactly, he said, if you think our engine sucks, go write your own. We'll buy it when it's better. And, I mean, that is not how you garner the goodwill, sir. This is a game that was important for you to actually, not make people hate. And I feel like he had to understand that. Like, they did a whole bunch of things to try and get back some of that goodwill from how, there were a lot of problems with Borderlands 3. But Randy apparently thought, the game's running at 15 frames per second. I don't give a shit. Reddit users did not take kindly to Randy and basically sarcastically said, if you were at a restaurant and said, this food tastes horrible and it's costly, it's the equivalent of the cook coming out and going, cook your own food. Show us how it's done. And it's like, well, no, that's not why I go to a restaurant. Yeah, I don't buy a game because I can make video games. First off, I can't. But second, if I could, that's still not why I would buy a video game. I would buy a video game to enjoy the video game. At number 4, you know how Fortnite is a pretty casual game? I mean, there are certainly hardcore Fortnite players. I'm not arguing there aren't. But the game itself is not regarded as a hardcore game. Now, a lot of game publishers make what you would call a quote-unquote casual game because they think that can only attract the type of player who isn't going to notice when something is off. This is not the case, as Fortnite players have been accusing Epic of being very scattershot, throwing stuff at the wall and hoping something sticks. Apparently, Battle Royale numbers are a little bit down, so they're just doing crazy stuff. The complaint is specifically about how this season is themed around bugs and stuff, but the devs randomly reintroduced 2 really powerful assault rifles and a shotgun that doesn't mesh with this season at all, and these weapons are really dominant, which completely undermines the season. Not only do these weapons immediately unbalance everything, but also stuff that does fit the current season has been overhauled or even removed, like movement medallions, which were axed. I don't know if that's good or bad. I don't really play Fortnite at this point. I've never been a hardcore Fortnite player, but I've never been less of a hardcore Fortnite player than now, let's say. But it just seems like the roadmap has become nonsense because they're getting a little desperate, which is not a good way to bring people back into the game. Desperation usually smells like shit. At number 3, Tencent and Sony are in a legal battle. I even alluded to what this is about in a previous point. So, Sony decided to sue Tencent for their upcoming game Light of Moterium for being a total clone of Horizon Zero Dawn, citing similarities such as tribal tech aesthetics, robotic wildlife, etc. They also pointed out what they see as confusion among consumers who might mistake Moterium for a spiritual successor to Horizon. Tencent, who some people regard as a kind of scary company, I don't think that's wrong, but they're definitely in the right here. They responded that Sony is trying to monopolize basic genre conventions like gliding, techno-organic stuff, post-apocalypse, which have existed in games before and after Horizon. They argue, correctly in my opinion, that painting those elements as exclusive to Sony or Horizon specifically is startling, and since the game isn't even due to release in 2027, Tencent is saying that Sony's argument is speculative. I kind of don't care about the speculation part. I care more about the fact that these big video game companies are literally trying to own types of games, or for that matter, types of characters, or types of locales, or genres like organic sci-fi. That's insane. It's completely insane that they're doing this. This is stuff that, has been talked about for decades as, no, you can't do that. And now they're all trying to do it. I hate it. These companies get so big, and they kind of find their logical endpoint of being able to be a real company that makes things that people buy, and it starts to just become about property and real estate. I want to own these things, and in owning them, I get to charge you to use them. It's just the end of innovation. It sucks. And number 2, a woman playing Grand Theft Auto was interrupted when an actual police chase crashed into her room. This one happened in Great Britain, to no shock. Seems like most of the police car ends up in-house. For whatever reason happens in Great Britain. But she was in Leeds, playing Grand Theft Auto 5, evading police in virtual car chases, and then a real police pursuit resulted in a suspect's vehicle smashing through her bedroom wall. Imagine you're playing the game. You're doing crazy stuff with your car, evading police, and all of a sudden, the thing you're doing in the game breaks through the wall of your home. Now, thankfully, Emma Graves, the homeowner, this person who was playing video games, was not hurt. But that shit's pretty crazy. And at number 1, a Chinese esports team has monetized addiction by running a 22-day quit gaming boot camp. We've talked some about video game addiction. There are people who go way too far and basically make their entire lives about games in a way that isn't fun. And an esports club that once trained pro hopefuls is now charging $1,400 to help young people quit games. See what happened, and I actually very much understand the logic here. The club's owner, Su Chen Hao, said that, and this is very artfully put on his part, he realized most of the kids signing up for his club to train to be esports pros were not prodigies that were destined for sponsorships, just people playing games. In a lot of cases, playing way too freaking many games, wasting all their time, avoiding doing life things like homework or jobs, etc. And Su Chen Hao is apparently an enterprising fellow. I phrased it as monetizing addiction, and I would say that that's the case. And there are a lot of things that I dislike about the monetizing of sobriety and much more serious addictions like alcoholism or drug use. Rehab ain't cheap. That's not necessarily a good thing. But also on some level, I can't help admire somebody who is that clever. I don't know about good, but clever. I don't know if I respect the whole program. I realize that everything has to cost money. That's kind of the way things are. But does it have to cost a lot of money? I'm not sure that 22 days of don't play video games is worth $1,400 is all. But what do you think? Leave us a comment, let us know. If you like this video, click like. If you're not subscribed, now's a great time to do so. We upload brand new videos every day of the week. Best way to see them first is, of course, a subscription, so click subscribe. Don't forget to enable notifications, and as always, thank you very much for watching this video. I'm Falcon. You can follow me on Twitter, Falcon the Hero. We'll see you next time right here on Game Ranks.